Are you lost? Or are you looking for something? Walking around here, it's dangerous. This is not recommended for everybody. Kiddos can come along, but they're gonna only have more questions than answers. But that's part of this journey. Enter if you dare. My name is Dakota Frandsen, and this is Specialist of the Strange Radio Show, where we go into various topics of the unknown and bring them to light. And maybe, just maybe, we'll discover something new along the way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. You're not going to want to miss this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special episode of Specialist of the Strange Radio Show. My name is Dakota Frandsen, and all month long we are going into everything that built the hunt for Olivia. Last week we discussed the possibilities of time travel ever since the University of Queensland deemed that paradoxless time travel may actually be real. This week, we need to take a look at none other than the angels. Which angel? One angel in particular, the angel Michael, the Archangel Michael. Who is he? What is his purpose? And why in the hell did he save my life? I want to answer these questions and more. But in order to do that satisfactorily, we need to dig into his history. What is known about him? What does he actually look like? Is he some asshole just like off of the show Supernatural, or is there something more to him? And why was he able to introduce me to my daughter? I want to know these things. And I want to know why and how my daughter was able to get him to help her hitchhike through time. I've been trying to look for those answers for years. I think I've finally come down to them. My name is Dakota Frandsen. I am the one, the only, Specialist of the Strange. And tonight, we're going to go into the angelic force I've been working side by side with all this time. You're going to want to stay tuned for this, my friends. I want to start this episode by stating this is not religious dogma. This is not to preach sermons or anything of that sort. This is an exploration of the supernatural by applying possible scientific links. These are all theories, and I may be wrong. However, the evidence I hope to present in this episode may just be compelling enough for those of you who sit down and listen to what I have to say before grabbing and picking at every bit I have to say in order to support your own religious beliefs. One thing I've always hated when it came to religious topics is the number of times when I try to discuss something, a scientific finding that may even support the existence of certain religious items. Those who consider themselves faithful will go against it, stating that the texts they grew up learning are the absolute truths, ignoring the fact that these texts are thousands of years old, have known to be historically edited over time, left to interpretation, as well as censored. And that is exactly the train of thought that leads us to the current political climates today. If we do not question the information that comes to us, if we do not take the time to actually learn, instead of having everything spoon-fed to us, we are doomed. Maybe that's what Michael's trying to warn. So, take that as your warning that this episode may conflict with some of your religious beliefs, and that while I am open to providing a healthy discussion, if you cite your sources as nothing more than chapters out of a Bible that you misinterpret and twist and pick and choose in order to fit your own prejudices, then you are not the type of person that should be listening to this program. Writer Alan Moore, popular for such comic books as Constantine and Watchmen and V for Vendetta, said it himself that the recent climates of political and cultural even, where nobody really seems to want to actually grow up, he blames on superhero movies. Personally, I think he may be onto something, but the situation's been going on a lot longer than what anybody on Earth has been living for. And that's what part of the point of this show is. To open up the discussion, to explore new ideas, to actually see if the supernatural is in fact real. And when it comes to the Archangel Michael, there's no shortage of conflicting information. And I want to go into some of that. I want to go into what makes Michael Michael. Because despite the images of angels being these loyal servants, act upon God's orders, blah, 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 the angels are just as capable of expressing free will as mankind. And did you know that Michael once doubted the creation of man? This is an old myth that is tied to ancient Hebrew, but the story essentially goes that Michael and a bunch of other angels were concerned about the creation of mankind, so they went to God in order to address these concerns, and God set them all on fire, except for Michael. As for why, it's hard to tell. Maybe God knew something else. that Michael didn't even know at the time. Perhaps this was a defining moment in Michael's celestial lifespan, in which showed God he was capable of rallying the troops in the time of concern, in the time of potential crisis. And being that Michael is considered a seraphim, a name that roughly translates to burning ones, considering many of the angels that questions God's creation of man were set on fire, maybe, just maybe, that's how they earned their name. Not because of their burning love for God, but in actuality, it's because of that particular incident. Without the ability to go back in time and see the events for ourselves, or even maintain a steady conversation with the angels in order to uncover their history, we may never know the official truth. But just imagine the things they could tell us. As many know, Michael is a patron saint of protectors. He is seen as almost the ultimate guardian angel. He's the ultimate protector against demons. And that's from his most noted fight with Satan and his armies. And it's because of this, Michael is highly regarded as one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful angel. But if you truly look at the encounters, and truly look at some of the descriptions of the angels, there are beings more powerful than Michael. It's only that Michael was the most clever. He was one of the smarter ones. And that's how he was able to win. As in regards to Samael, Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, all of them, they let their pride get in the way of their victory. So that's a generalized summary of what we're going to go into for this episode. Being able to piece this one together was a little tricky, because I didn't want to focus too much on religious folklore. I wanted to focus on, for lack of better terminology, the anatomy of an angel, the anatomy of Michael. What makes him an angel? What makes him a seraphim? And the answers may just be surprising. This angel in particular is of special interest to me, for those of you who do not know the story, as it is widely believed by many of the mentors I spoke with over the years on the matter, that Michael not only brought me back to life, but introduced me to a little girl who may in fact be my daughter, that has yet to be born, or even conceived. So what gives Michael these abilities? What makes him so powerful, so awe-inspiring, so confusing in many ways? When it comes to the angels, especially the archangels, their origins are a little mysterious. They seem to have just appeared one day. And what do I mean by that? I mean, for some odd reason, they just happen to appear one day. Yet, you have a conversation with them, they'll tell you about all the early species that used to be on this earth. How there's even life on other worlds, other realms. But the confusing matter in this is, how would they know this? Now, like I said before at the beginning of the program, this expose is going to be formatted under the assumption that angels are in fact real. And he's operating under this assumption that we eliminate the what ifs and we jump into the hows. In previous programs, I theorized that the realms in which the angels, the demons, gods even, time flows differently for them. It seems to move faster or slower. Or instead of being linear like we experience it, they can freely move throughout time. Now, this is because of how the multiversal dimensions actually work. Here in our 3-dimensional world, we have 1 dimension at a time. We have 4 dimensions, we have 2 dimensions at times. 5th dimension, we have at least 3 dimensions at times, and so on and so forth. Angels likely exist in realms that we would consider 10th, 11th, maybe even 12th dimensional. It is at these levels where alternate universes start coming into play. At the 12th dimension, that basically incorporates all of existence throughout all of existence throughout all of existence. Every possibility is legit. Every thought, every story, every possibility is possible. It has been possible. It is already possible. It is happening at that very moment. Beings who exist in these levels can freely move through time and space, be able to observe the sequence of events as they occur in moments of singularity. Basically, to them, watching one person's entire life, in fact, let's not even just limit it down to one person. For them, they could possibly see the total ancestral line, the span of one's entire family line to the first primates till the last whatever the hell turns up, until the last great extinction that wipes us out. They could see it all like they could watch. Let's utilize the Justice League Snyder Cut, for example, where it's supposed to be like a 4-part special, an hour each. Yeah. They could watch all 4 of those hours in a moment's notice. And not even that. Compare the ancestral line of all of living things, known and unknown, on our world today. including everything that has ever lived, everything that has gone extinct, everything that will go extinct, everything that has yet to be undiscovered, and everything that has been discovered. Everything there. They would be able to observe in a single moment and know everything. And because their minds and their bodies are given more room to grow and develop, they would have more neurological capacity. They would have more strength. Basically, their brains would be able to handle it way better than even the most sophisticated quantum computers mankind could ever piece together. Now, what about their forms? Now, we're all familiar with the humanoid angels. The ones where they could look like the average Joe until all of a sudden their wings pop out. The ones who normally occur like this are usually lower level, cherubs. The seraphim? That's where their forms start getting a little freaky. The seraphim are stated to have 6 wings, 2 that cover their face, 2 that cover their legs, and 2 in which they use to fly with. And they're even known as the burning ones. Angels, when they're said to appear, the way they appear gives a lot of people the impression they are nothing more than beings of light. But I don't think that's the case. Hear me out. Right now, our basic understanding of biology, our basic understanding of anatomy, how species form, a 3-dimensional world is the lowest point in which a complex organism can develop. The Action Lab on YouTube posed an interesting, let me rephrase that, made an interesting point as to why this is. Let's take a human person, alright, and try to squeeze them down into a 2-dimensional world. Basically, the way that works is only a very tiny, 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 tiny slice of that person would be visible on the 2-dimensional plane. And being that, assuming there are no higher dimensions for that being to develop, the 2-dimensional space is that entire world, there's a slight little problem with how we develop. And it's our digestive tract. Because essentially, we are organisms that have a long hole running through our bodies, from our mouths to our butts. Sure, it gets all angled and tangled, but from the mouth, through our esophagus, stomach, through our intestines, and out the ass. Technically, we have a large hole through us at all times. And if only one slice of us was able to be... And if we were to take a 2-dimensional slice out of that person, first off, there would be no room for the body to grow around the digestive tract in order to hold everything together. And there would also be no way for nutrients to be fed and stored in the body because nothing's being held together. Okay? It's kind of a morbid example, but it's the truth. So right now it seems that a 3-dimensional space is the lowest point complex organisms can develop. But another thing we need to consider is if angels are beings of light, technically, so is every living thing on this earth. We give off infrared light, heat. And while mostly invisible to the human eye, it's still there. We can feel it and we can see it with the right tools. Now, work with me on this one. Basically, we need to get rid of the notion from science fiction that dimensions are other worlds. Dimensions are simply directions. We need to observe this from a mathematician or a physicist's point of view. Dimensions are simply directions in which space is filled. So if the three-dimensional world, up, down, left, right, front, back, is the lowest point a complex organism can build, and our body heat is nearly invisible to our eyes, what would something that existed in a higher dimension be? In previous episodes, I mentioned that it is likely that these beings, being that they have had more room to grow and develop, microwave energy, even energy from a goddamn nuclear bomb, would be their equivalent of a minor, ooh, that's hot. Do you get what I'm saying? What are the chances that light, sound, heat, all these things, because there are more spatial directions, they won't behave slightly differently because of that? And if someone from a three-dimensional world were to all of a sudden appear in these higher dimensional planes, they would only be able to see so much. Take, for example, the encounters of beautiful blue lights during some reports of a near-death experience. Let's take that for example. That's only a small portion of the visible light spectrum. So, and if everything in this plane, this is partially based on my own experiences, but if everything in this plane starts to reflect bluish glows, where are the rest of the colors? Do we all of a sudden go partially colorblind after we die? Maybe. Unfortunately, the only way to tell right now is if someone dies and comes back and tells us. That's kind of the main problem when it comes to the paranormal. But these beings all had beings that were used to be human had this blue kind of appearance to them, kind of like the Na'vi from the Avatar movies. You know, the big blue aliens. But however, Michael, when he appeared to me, looked like just any other person, except his image was kind of blurry, kind of bright. And as my encounter lasted longer with him, I was able to make out more and more details. This brings up an interesting idea. If a human soul, dies, crosses over, however you want to call it, there is likely no magical event in which we'll give our bodies more mass than they had, if anything at all. We would still maintain our relative small stature unless there's some sort of grand conjuncture with alternate Earth versions of us, like some theories suggest, but that's in a whole another episode. However, if angels are able to adjust their appearance, what if they are the most gifted shadow puppet masters out there. What if they've had enough time to observe and study our world, how their bodies interact with our world, to where they can alter their appearance however they choose? But they have to be careful. Why? We're going to go into that after this next commercial break. Just think of it. Just think of it. Just think of it. An angel could easily just stick their hand into the view of our world, put it into any shape they wanted, just to freak us out. And we wouldn't be able to tell that was going on. We would just see this huge morphing thing just seemingly floating in space. We wouldn't see it coming. We might see a few side effects here and there. Like bright flashes of light that appear briefly as the being moves in and out of our world. And if the being is not careful, they could actually cause fires with seemingly no origin point. See what I'm getting at here? The angels, demons, gods, and monsters, they all have to be careful if interacting with our world, because there could be some ill side effects from them messing around. And should they be able to take a form, excuse me, I don't know why my voice says that sometimes. Should they be able to take a form that would blend into the crowd, they would have to be cutting off a huge portion of themselves in order to maintain that form without causing alarm. And because time is different in these higher dimensions, they could cause that little shadow puppet thing shape example that I used earlier to appear at different times relative to us. They could stick one finger into the 1500s, one finger into now, and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference. We would think that, something like that, maybe we might be able to find some sort of written record from back then stating a weird event, weird divine event like that happening. But we would not know for sure. We would not be able to tell. And of course, being that we have so many people that claim that legitimate footage from outside of the Earth is bad CGI, even though the real stuff looks a lot less impressive than computer-generated imagery nowadays. We would also have that argument too, but despite what people think, their own beliefs don't invalidate science. So, in relation to Michael, though, it gets interesting, because he is said to be one of the angels that basically governs the pathway from death until heaven. He's supposed to be the angel that helps guide us through, right? And being that he is a being of such a high standing, if we take the translation for his name, he who is like God, quite literally, he may be able to foresee all sorts of nasty things and be able to silently guide humanity to the path of least resistance. But it also falls upon us to take responsibility for ourselves. Higher beings like that are known and open to trying to help out humanity with their goals, but they want to see some equal effort. But like I said at the beginning of this episode, going back and understanding the true meaning behind everything will take some time, at best. And it really brings up a lot of questions about several so-called angel encounters. Why did they show up? Was it just an accident? Or is there some sort of purpose? If there is a being, God, Yahweh, whatever you want to call him, that tasks the angels to basically look after us, could it be that God realized the potential we have and how easily we would become lost? I'll have to leave that one in there. That's good. Could it be that if there was some sort of divine intervention, what was it that concerned the angels so much that they took action? Now, I'm going to be honest. The only other so-called angelic warning of a child coming I've been aware of, besides my own experience with Olivia, was the story of the birth of Jesus. And I've talked this story with a few clients of mine, and they're like, well, if that's the case, who the hell are you supposed to give birth to? And I was like, I don't know. The thought honestly scares me. So, under the understanding that the angels could essentially freely walk between worlds through time at any given point they so desired, why did Michael send Olivia back? How did my daughter manage to fucking hitchhike on an archangel to come save my life? And how is it she was able to maintain that connection the way she has all these years? The answer honestly kind of scares me. Because if you look at a lot of reports of psychic abilities suddenly appearing out of nowhere, there's usually trauma. All indications of how Olivia was able to move through time honestly scares the crap out of me. Because if she was able to ride with an archangel, which means she's probably seen some things. She knows what's going to happen. And right now I'm in the middle of writing a book that details my life and how certain things came about. So maybe she's read that in the future, but all indications honestly scare me that something's going to happen. In one hand, if, like on the last week's episode where paradoxless time travel is a factor in this situation, I can take comfort in knowing that I will not die. And no matter what happens to me, I cannot die. So that Olivia can be born and still come back and save my life. On the other hand, what the hell is going to happen to my daughter? And is the reason why she went through time to see me, was it just because she found out a way and wanted to see what she could do? Which, if she's my child, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Was it something innocent like that, or do I not get to see my baby girl grow up? God, this is all so fucking confusing. So, this is fucking scary. I feel like Eric Bana in Time Traveler's Wife. If you haven't seen the movie, see it. It's a really good movie, and it really captures what I've been going through for the last 12 years. And as for Michael, the only lead that I've gotten to whatever Michael's ideas or plans are, or his intentions rather, comes from my grandmother, who allegedly could talk to the angels. And she said that according to her, Michael has been watching my family for quite some time. In particular, has taken a special interest. And so far, I'm the only one who's had any sort of experience as close to what Olivia has unfolded for me. I'm the only one. I've heard of people seeing their kids before birth, and I've seen a few incidents like that, but where it's evident, where it's obvious an angel came into play. What's going to happen to me? Well, hard to say. But if I let myself mope around and think about that portion before ever, then I'm not really going to feel motivated to do anything now, will I? Because my grandmother also mentioned that apparently before birth, there was a deal made where I would try to help people, as many as I could, in order for me to be born here. That fits into some of the beliefs. I believe it would be LDS, that children somehow choose, souls somehow choose the points in which they wish to be born. And it's not just LDS if that's the case, but I've heard a few other places where that's mentioned. Like that one psychic kid out of Russia was about my age. I shouldn't say kid because he's about my age, but one Russian kid who said he was reincarnated from Mars, for example. It also means that souls from other worlds could easily be influencing our own. And in theory, anybody could reincarnate through time. In theory, if the soul does in fact move through time and the angels are somehow guiding it, someone could be reincarnated from the future. Oh, that just hurt my head, just thinking about it. But it's definitely something worth exploring more. Next week on Specials of the Strange Radio Show, hopefully I get it done on time this time around, on October 23rd, we are going to explore children before birth. We're going to explore the concept of children being able to meet their parents before birth. So I think that's something we need to discuss a bit more, especially in times where the very traumas that seem to trigger psychic phenomenon are happening a bit more lately due to the pandemic. It's definitely something you want to see. My name is Dakota Frandsen. I'll see you all next time. Take care. Be safe. Much love to you all.